stage in life that we're hoping we can live beautifully and age gracefully through and not have it be taboo. That's the other piece. Like, can we support women and help them to understand what's happening inside of their bodies instead of shame them and blame them and judge them and, think that they're crazy?
Because you have more power over your health than what you've been told. This is the Healthy Lifestyle Solutions podcast, and I'm your host, Maya Acosta. I'm passionate about finding healthy lifestyle solutions to support optimal human health. If you're willing to go with me, together we can discover how simple lifestyle choices can help improve our quality of life and increase longevity in a big way. Let's get started. What is menopause? When should women expect to go through this change? What are the symptoms? And what can we do to support ourselves as our body begins to do the transition? Dr. Michelle Thompson leads the Menopause Subcommittee for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine's Women's Health Interest Group, and she's here to provide tips on what we can do to age gracefully. As always, you can find the full bio and the link for each of my guests at our website, healthylifestylesolutions.org.
It's so good to be back with you. We had so much fun the last time.
After you stopped by here on the show, I went ahead and watched Going Home, the documentary that you were featured in. And I'm telling you, that was such a good documentary. I shared it with some people that I know.
Oh, good.
So it sounds now, as a result, I'm a lot more aware of how sound influences us, how humming helps us. If you'd like to throw anything out, a couple of minutes on the Going Home documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was so fortunate to be invited to be on that. And we're also very fortunate where we live to have the Center for Sound Therapy in Boardman, Ohio. And I used sound in my own journey for years. So I was on there really just talking about how we could use it in our own healing, because I really do believe that, we are our own best healer, and what, is good for me is not necessarily going to feel right for you. And it's one of the modalities that I use the most. So if I'm having stress in my life, I will go for a sound therapy session. And I actually have a bowl sitting right here next to me. I will show you. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it, but I wasn't prepared for this part of it. But can you? Yeah. So
yes.
I have, and we'll start actually. So with that, let's start us with a little bit of breathing.
That'd
Can
be
we
great.
do that together, Maya? Just
Yes.
a little bit of breathing. So come into this space with us and really just come into this moment. So, if you're in a space where you can close your eyes, go ahead and do that. And if not, that's okay. Just come into your body and just start to notice your breath. Take a deep breath in through your nose, all the way into the top of your head. And let all that air out all the way to the bottom of your feet. Maybe putting one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. And as you breathe in, thinking soft as you breathe in and belly as you breathe out. If thoughts come, let them come and let them go. Gently bringing your mind back to soft belly. Two more breaths, just like that. Knowing that it's in the mind's nature to wander. Just come back to your breath. Feeling the quality of the breath as you breathe in and out, and knowing that as long as we have our breath, there's more right with us than wrong with us. And as long as we have our breath, we're alive, we're well, we're safe, and we're capable of making a change for the better in our lives that will affect not just us, but all of those around us, even from a planetary standpoint. One last breath together. And then softly blinking open your eyes, coming back to this space. All too often, we actually don't stop to breathe. I actually just ran a meeting at noon, and I decided when I'm running meetings, I'm going to start our meetings with breath. And so I just brought that into this space so that we come into this space together. And, I also wanted to share, as we're moving into this, I went to a yoga class this morning, and I had my teacher, Shannon Schugert, was sharing this quote, and I brought this to read with us. So, 4 ways to set yourself free, and this was by Nikki Banas, Banas. Honor your own energy and give yourself permission to step away from the battles that are not yours. Give yourself permission to set down others' opinions. We don't have to carry them. Forgiveness. Forgive yourself and forgive others. And lastly, invite change. Give yourself permission to change. And I wanted to start that because that's kind of what we're talking about, a change, right? So I was like, wow, I said to her, I was like, can I share this in this podcast I'm doing this afternoon? Can I, share your name with it? Because this is where I go to get my cup filled up in the yoga studio. And what we're really talking about today is how can we live beautifully and age gracefully in a very stressful world? And how can we embrace menopause, really, and this time in our lives that we're all going to go through as women, or we're going to be affected, like you said. We're going to have a mother, a sister, a friend, somebody that's going through it. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this today, Maya.
Yes, thank you. So I did say that I'm going through the change. And as I was preparing for this conversation, I realized, wow, I've never really spent time learning about menopause. Who teaches you that? A couple of
Right.
years ago, I remember asking my mother about her own experience, and she said, "What are you talking about? I never went through menopause." I just thought, what? So we're going to help a lot of ladies that perhaps don't have that kind of role model to guide them. So I'm so happy that you're here. And I also want to mention that, as part of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine's interest group, women's interest group, you lead the women's subcommittee group for menopause. And so you're helping to put together materials to kind of inform providers as well as patients about what this time of life is like.
Yeah, and they asked me to do that 2 years ago, I think it was. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, little did I know I was going to be going through menopause when they asked me to do it. So, and yeah, and I'll share my journey with you. I actually, um, I didn't really have a lot of the symptoms that we're going to talk about that menopause is, but I had a moment that I was like, things don't feel right in my body. I didn't feel like myself. And it was when I was 47. I went to the gym and I was doing my normal workout. I had been away for my birthday and I was away from my, normal workouts for a week or 10 days or something. Went back in and I was like, I feel like I hit a wall. Like, could it be? Like, well, it was so weird. And I had already had my hormones tested, 6 months prior. So I thought, at first my husband says, are you eating enough? Are you making sure you're taking care of your body? And I was like, yeah, I am. When I tested my hormones, I was in menopause. I was like, wow, like it just happened overnight. And like you, I asked my mom, I can't really ask my mom because she had surgical menopause. So she doesn't know what that looks like for her. She just went into menopause one day because she had her parts removed. So I just had to say, well, okay. And looking back, I thought to myself, you could start to see signs and maybe why. And I attribute some of mine to stress induced with being a doctor frontline in the pandemic. So when we talked the last time, and I'll just share again, I was chair of medicine at the beginning of COVID. And the very first thing I did when we rolled everything into telemedicine overnight is I went and got myself this Aura ring, which is a sleep tracker, because I wanted to make sure that I was sleeping well, because sleep is the driver of everything. If you don't sleep well, you don't feel like exercising, you don't feel like eating healthy, you are just anxious because you're sleep deprived, you don't want to connect with others because you're tired and you'd rather go to bed, and you may use risky substances, and all the pillars of lifestyle medicine kind of go when you don't sleep well. So I bought this sleep tracker, and that at that moment, the interesting thing about the sleep tracker, Maya, is that it also measures your body temperature. And when you measure your body temperature, you can also see your body temperature changing with your menstrual cycle. And I started to see that flat line. So my body temperature has not been changing like it had been prior. So a lot of, these wearables, these gadgets that we have can actually be helpful, right? Another thing that I use is I have an Apollo Neuro. It's actually on my ankle right now. I could either raise my ankle or take it off. I'm sitting on a ball, a core stability ball. So this
Right.
is an Apollo Neuro, and it vibrates. So
Wow.
hooks to an app on your phone, and it can help you to sleep better. And it's like kind of a stress reduction type of thing, and a sleep improvement aid. And actually, we're doing studies at the University of Pittsburgh on this Apollo Neuro in physicians and how it improves their stress, improves their anxiety, improves their mental focus, because there's different sections that you can actually click on that say, you want to be in a wake up mode, where it gives you a little energy, or it gives you more clear focus. And maybe I should have that on now. Clear focus, rebuild, recovery after your workout, that kind of thing. So it kind of looks like this. I'm not sure if you can see it, but you can
Yes,
choose.
I can see it.
So, and I use that for sleep, to help me sleep better. So yeah, so interesting stuff.
Right. Well, I'll share a little bit from my end in terms of my own experience, and then we can move forward with what exactly is menopause. But I too, like I said, I didn't know when to expect this, because my sisters, I have three sisters, and they all have different levels of, say, health problems. So I can't really measure what I'm going to experience based on my sister's experiences because of other conditions. One of them also had a hysterectomy and was kicked into menopause immediately. And so it's like, well, what am I supposed to expect? But I a couple of years ago, I did read that in order to be considered in menopause, you have to have at least 12 months, consecutive, uninterrupted months of no longer experiencing a menstrual cycle. And I was already starting to kind of be off menstrual cycle and back on, kind of having months in between. And then one day I realized, hey, it's been a year. I
Time
think I'm
flies.
in I think I'm in menopause. And then I wasn't breaking out as much. But of course, I also contribute that to the diet. So it's like, well, I'm not having, it's a blessing not having the monthly menstrual cramps that I suffered
Mhm.
with most of my life. So that was the first indicator that, wow, I'm there now. The other thing was, I did start to have some hot flashes, but I will say that I was experiencing those about 8 years ago before I went plant based. And once I cleaned up my diet, that went away. So
Yeah.
I thought, oh, I'm going to go through this smoothly without hot flashes. But we'll talk about all of this. But in terms of sleep deprivation, it's hard to measure right now whether it's a result of this. I will say that I am beginning to feel a little hotter in the evening, but I also have a little 10-pound dog that loves to like cuddle right next to me. And I never knew this about dogs, but man, he heats up. He's like a personal heater. And I mean, I'm just like, stay away. And he wakes me up. So my sleeping pattern has been thrown off as a result of him. So I can't really say it's due to menopause yet. So that's one of the things. So sleep, getting a little hot, no longer having menstrual cycle, but also feeling like things are coming up in terms of anxiety, in terms of kind of issues. And I was saying to you earlier that I'm very thankful that right now I do have a couple of life coaches that are helping me
Mhm.
just in life. And I think because of that, I'm addressing things that are coming up, but not everybody has access to these resources. So, having said all of that, I'm hoping that we can start by just kind of talking about what we should expect before we go into menopause. So, what exactly is menopause? What is being perimenopausal? And then, what is post menopause?
So the most important thing is that you're doing this and creating this space so that you can give awareness to people. Not everybody can afford a life coach, but everybody has access to this, and so this is a wonderful thing for everybody to have. So yeah, we're going to talk about what is menopause, right? What is this time? What's happening inside of our bodies? So we have perimenopause, or premenopause symptoms that's happening prior to and around the time, peri means around the time of menopause, where our body is starting to have those changes like you were talking about. Our periods are kind of all over the place and not making a lot of sense, may get heavier, may get longer in duration. You may have 3 months without. And then, all of a sudden a year goes by and you didn't have a period. That's menopause. And what is that? Your hormone levels start to change. So your FSH goes up and your LH goes up. And the test we use really is an FSH to see if you're in menopause. Testosterone decreases, estrogen, progesterone decrease. Your body really starts to have these hormones start to change. And then postmenopause is the time after. And, that's also an important time. So this is just another stage in life, just like we talk about in some of the women's health, the time around childbearing years and the time around pregnancy. It's just a phase and a stage in life that we're hoping we can live beautifully and age gracefully through and not have it be taboo. That's the other piece. Like, can we support women and help them to understand what's happening inside of their bodies instead of shame them and blame them and judge them and, think that they're crazy? Because remember, it used to be that, people that were postpartum depression and they were crazy, right? That's what people would say. And it's really hormones. Hormones make you feel this way. You had mentioned a little bit about having some anxiety. I too had anxiety on a flight at one point. I was like, I don't normally get anxious to fly. I actually thought I was going to be stuck in Cartagena, Colombia. I think that's what was coming up for me because I was traveling.
I would
So
be frightened about that too, though.
I
It would
was
be
like, well, this
terrifying.
might be. So I was like, well, so what did I do? I actually did my breathing, which we did together in the beginning. I used my soft belly breathing. That's a tool we always have with us. And then I watched a Disney movie to get out of my head. So I was like, I'm going to do something kind of carefree and fun. And it was wonderful to watch that. What's happening is the ovaries are no longer active, so you can't have babies anymore, right? You're not going to be able to get pregnant anymore. And that can be different, really, different ages for different people. So, it could be in your late 40s, it could be in your mid 40s, it could be even into your 50s. So, different for everybody. And there's lots of factors. You were saying about your sisters and different health problems. My sister is younger than me and went into menopause sooner than me. But she is a shift worker. So she's a police officer. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Sleep deprivation leads to stress on the body. And the more stress you have, the more easily you can move into menopause.
Hmm. Thank you for that. It is true that different things can affect the onset of menopause, and so I'm glad that we're talking about this because there were a few things that I was learning as I was preparing for this conversation, which is our race and ethnicity can also play a role in the onset of menopause. So, where we live, for example, as well as the genetic components and lifestyle. And you'll give us some tips on in terms of what we can do to sort of go through this process a little bit better. I'm glad that you mentioned that this is nothing to be ashamed about. I sometimes feel that we're portrayed that way, that there's something wrong with you, or now you're freezing the entire house. Sometimes you hear that from men, that they say, oh, just because you're going through these night sweats does not mean that I have to freeze in the evening as well.
Yeah.
But to really honor ourselves, how you started, for example, this podcast episode with meditation and breathing exercises, the way that I feel helps us go through this. And I'm not an expert, right? But I feel that being okay with what we're going through can help the whole situation. Just knowing that, we're going through changes, we're experiencing mood swings. And also, I wonder how many women might experience some sort of depression as a result of feeling like this part of their life has ended. The being reproductive, for example, or maybe feeling like their youth is now, their younger years are now done and we're moving to another phase in our lives. So I wonder how many women are impacted. Um, can we talk a little bit about symptoms first?
Yeah.
Physiological symptoms and also maybe on a more emotional level, what are some of the variations, some of the things that women experience?
So, like I had mentioned, I experienced weakness and, kind of fatigue, like I hit a wall, like my strength was down. And the anxiety, when I wouldn't have otherwise had anxiety about something. And hot flashes is a big one that people experience. Night sweats is another really big one. um, not feeling like doing things, like lack of connection with others, not wanting to go out and be around people, not wanting to do certain activities because, or exercise as an example, because you're going to already get sweaty, and those symptoms. Vaginal dryness is another one. And I think that, when again, first of all, I want to say, you had mentioned something, being okay with not being okay. We don't always have to be okay, right? But what we have to have is awareness of what's happening inside of us. And when we have that awareness, then we can say, oh, I'm okay not being okay because I have understanding that that this issue is going on inside of my body. And then, I think the sleep disruption is huge, because the sleep disruption can happen from night sweats, but it can also happen just because of the anxiety. So that breath work that I gave you in the beginning, you can do that to help you to go back to sleep. Start to count your breath and just, soothe yourself. And when you count your breath, you start to really not think about the past and not think about the future. You focus on counting your breath, and that can help to lull you back to sleep. And we're going to talk a little bit about, and I'm not sure if you want to talk about this now, but we have certain foods to heat you and foods to cool you, and, and that's important too. So I do want to make sure that we talk about that at some point.
Definitely. And I too, by the way, I just want to throw this in there that I thought, wow, I made the change in terms of going plant based. I'm not going to have a lot of problems when it comes to menopause. That was what I put in my head because of the research and what you learn about the power of plant based foods. However, and I just had my labs drawn, everything looks fine. Protein levels are fine. The things, vitamin D is low. So we can talk about that maybe in
Hmm.
osteoporosis. So definitely need a supplement with vitamin D. However, I was shocked to realize that I feel tired a lot. So when I wake up, I'm tired. I wake up feeling tired. I'm not a person that was ever used to napping. Suddenly, I feel like I need to sleep. And so I've been wondering, what is it? What is it that I can do? Why am I feeling tired? Is it related to menopause? Because everything else looks fine. Like my C reactive protein looks fine. A1C looks fine. Like I just had all this done just because it's an annual kind of thing. So fatigue is in place now, and I'm very disappointed about that because I
Well,
love to have energy.
me too. And I was finding that I wasn't getting out of bed to do my workouts like I normally did. And I'd hired a trainer because I'm like, I'm going to be accountable and get out of bed, because 2 days a week, I go to yoga 4 days a week. So the 2 days that I was like, and when I was doing my workouts, I was like, kind of, I call them just like being lazy at it. I was going through the motions, but I wasn't pushing myself. And I thought about it, and I thought, I need to take care of myself, because self-care is the center of my healthcare. It's what I preach. So I need to put this money into myself so that I can keep doing the work that I do for everyone else, and not feel bad about it, not have shame, or, be hard on myself about spending this money, because I think it's really important to take care of ourselves. When we are taking care of ourselves, we are being such an example to everyone around us, our children, our friends, for me, my patients. Um, so I think that that was very beneficial for me, to hire a trainer, to have somebody that made me get out of bed. And, and honestly, what happened was, I just shared this with my husband, because I'm exercising harder, I'm sleeping better. I've watched my sleep score go up. With the ring tracker, you get a sleep score. So my sleep has actually gotten better. So I'm like sleeping like a rock. Like,
I need to get one of those.
yeah, yeah. Maybe
Well,
like instead of the coach one day, you have the trainer one day. But
there you go. Now, do we know why women who have low socioeconomic status and have certain backgrounds in race or ethnicity, do we know why they tend to have sort of an early onset experience with menopause?
So just like when we start to talk about epigenetics, disease runs in families because food runs in families. And, you know, unfortunately, with the lower socioeconomic status, sometimes their nutrition isn't up to speed. And we've learned over time that poor nutrition in childhood can actually lead to health problems. So you and I can do everything right now, but we are still affected from how our mom was when she was pregnant with us and how we were raised on certain foods. I mean, I was raised on green beans, peas, and corn in a can, and very, not a diverse diet. And when I think about I was thinking about the fruits and vegetables that I really ate growing up, I didn't have that robust phytonutrients and that was given to me. So, who knows, that plays a role. And, the genes are there, but our environment pulls the trigger. And we were looking at different locations. It's like the blue zones when we talk about certain areas. People do better than others, but even in the environment, you can have environmental toxins in certain areas. I personally live in an area where we have a mill, like, steel mills in our area. I'm near Youngstown, Ohio, and Sharon, Pennsylvania. I'm kind of in that area, but so there's a lot of cancers. There's a lot of, health problems associated with the mills and what goes into the water system and all of that. So there's so many factors that we don't have control of. But the good news is we have so many things we do have control of.
Thank you for saying that. I wanted to throw these numbers out there that in my notes, after I was going through the women's health book, I wanted to share this and maybe you can, we've already talked about hot flashes, but I was surprised to learn that in terms of common disturbances that women experience, that 60% would say they experience hot flashes. 48% experience night sweats, which we've talked about, and 41% experience insomnia, which we also spoke about. But Dr. Cindy Geyer came on to talk to us about the importance of sleep and things that we can do to support, especially support ourselves when we're going through menopause. Also, this was another thing that surprised me is that women who are overweight or deal with weight issues tend to have a higher prevalence for hot flashes as opposed to women who are on the lighter side. So weight loss is associated with having less severe hot flashes. That was interesting to me.
Yeah, and that is because of the estrogen receptors in fat cells and things like that. So there's definitely, losing weight can be a huge benefit for people, but they get into a vicious cycle. It's kind of hard to lose weight in the menopausal time because your hormones are changing. So, you do, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but you have to work extra hard at it.
Right. Well, as we get into lifestyle and modifications that we can adopt to kind of soften some of the symptoms, let's talk about how people have moved away now from the hormone replacement therapy. Because I remember 15 years ago or so, as I was learning about just basic things about menopause then, because I really haven't done much research. I remember feeling scared because at that time you were hearing that that's not the best thing for women to do the hormone replacement therapy. And so I was also reading that perhaps lifestyle modifications can be just as effective as hormone replacement. What do you think?
Well, so that's a great question. First of all, I want to say that lifestyle should always be at the center of our healthcare. And I am certified in mind body medicine as well as lifestyle medicine and integrative medicine. So, what I always look at first is mind body medicine, because how are we going to get our mind and body connected to make these changes that we need to make? And always looking at, you know, patterns that we could break and tools that we can use for ourselves. So the mind body medicine piece is first and foremost. I love Cindy Geyer, by the way. I don't want to forget to say that. She's fantastic. So um, I met her through the Center for Mind Body Medicine, and then I ran into her in the lifestyle medicine arena. So mind body medicine front and center, and then lifestyle medicine next. And when you start to look at the lifestyle medicine pieces, you can help a lot of the symptoms with the lifestyle medicine pieces. I'm also board certified in lifestyle and integrative medicine, just like Dr. Cindy Geyer is as well. And then we move into the integrative pieces next. And so, when you look at the new model of healthcare, you really put self-care at the center. You put the mind-body piece as part of the self-care, and the lifestyle medicine is part of self-care, and the integrative medicine and those other modalities, and then medications at the very end. So, I don't want to discount hormone replacement therapy. There's a lot of work that's being done on it right now, saying that part of it is really supporting the hormones, because if we don't support the hormones, we can have an increased risk of problems down the road. So we want to be mindful that the field is ever changing and science changes every single day. It's not taught in gynecology, OB-GYN really, or urology, female urology. There's just work consistently being done on it every day. Dr. Kelly Casperson has a podcast called You Are Not Broken, and I'm not sure if you follow any of her work.
But I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, so she talks a lot about this, and but again, it's like the wild, wild west out there with it. So you have to be so careful when you're looking at things like that. Really, lifestyle medicine should be at the core, and starting to dive into what does that look like in your own life. So sleep, we already talked about, really. So when we're sleeping better, we'll make better food choices. And when we make, what do those food choices look like? We want people to eat a whole food, plant-based diet, eat real food. Can we just all agree to eat real food? Actually, I'm going to go over some things with you. Is that okay? Right
Yes,
now would be
please.
a great time to talk about that.
Perfect.
So I have a list of foods. So it's important to know that we can use food as medicine as our strategy to care for ourselves. So there are certain foods that can help to support women's health and hormones in general. And if I give this list to you, would you be able to share it in the show notes? Okay, because it's kind of a long list, and everybody is not going to remember all of these things running and grabbing a pen. But foods that are rich in zinc are valuable. We know when we're whole food plant-based that we need to be mindful of our B12 and our vitamin D. And so you and I really kind of already touched on the vitamin D, but keeping your vitamin D between 60 and 80 is important. Vitamin C rich foods. I put a lemon and a lime in my smoothie just to get myself natural vitamin C. I believe we should try to get things out of our food first. Banana, spinach, and think about this. As I'm saying these things, think about how much of this you could get into one smoothie. Oranges, pink grapefruit. I actually just had a pink grapefruit before you and I got on this together. Ground flax and chia, pomegranate, tomato, ginger. I've never put tomato in my smoothie, but all these other things really I've put in my smoothie. Collard greens, pumpkin seeds. I snack on pumpkin seeds, pistachios, dark chocolate, as dark as you can get, and almonds. And so you can use some of these things for snacks as you move through your day. And this is also very helpful for people that are around their period. You know how people get menstrual migraines around their cycle? Start to think about maybe their magnesium is low. Can they eat some magnesium-rich foods or zinc-rich foods? But then the foods that heat you up and the foods that cool you. Take a listen to this. Foods that heat you up: coffee, caffeine. So excess of that can cause people to have more hot flashes, thinking that heating up, right? Alcohol. If you drink too much wine and you go to bed, you might have hot flashes. Refined foods, processed foods, packaged foods, animal products. We don't know what's in the animal products, antibiotics, hormones that are in the meats, right? That people are eating. And then greasy foods and smoking, that can heat people up. But foods that cool you. Let's move there for a second. Celery, apples, asparagus, melons, tempeh, tofu, soy products, right? So edamame, bean sprouts, white tea, green tea. I'll give you a tip. I put green tea in my smoothie every single day. I steep the green tea. I don't like the taste of it, but I steep it. And then I use the liquid and pour it into my smoothie, because then I don't taste the green tea and I get the health benefits of it. Avocado, cauliflower, cucumber, mung beans, seaweed, peppermint, pears, and coconut. And so those are all foods that if you're really like, boy, I'm really having a lot of hot flashes, try to avoid the ones that heat you up and try to add in the ones that cool you down. And so that's food as medicine at its finest. And I actually learned some of this at the Food as Medicine for Women's Health when I met Cindy Geyer in Esalen in California. So that was my very first journey with mind body medicine. And I just fell in love with that whole approach.
Right. Okay, this is great because now it makes sense as you're talking. I don't really drink a lot of coffee, but okay, well, I don't know what a lot of coffee is anymore.
More than 1 cup a day. I want to say that because I believe everybody should just drink 1 cup a day black without added, things in it. But yeah.
You're right. So if I have a cup in the morning and then I usually have a cup in a second cup in the afternoon, that is when I start to feel hot. And believe it or not, I did not
Yeah.
know that coffee played a role, but it makes sense that as I'm drinking it, I suddenly feel hot.
So, for me, it's kind of like I know all of these things, but I still have these lists that I will go to and say, okay, what do I need to do to care for myself? I'm also going to share with you some tea. There's a tea called cooling sage. So then now I move into the integrative modalities like the herbal kind of thing. But a cooling sage tea can help to cool you as well. So it can help with some of those hot flashes. Or you can make some of your own tea, like you can grate ginger, turmeric, and I'll give you the recipe for this with lemon, cayenne pepper, and black pepper. Put all of that into um, boiling water. You could do a turmeric latte. So you could put unsweetened plant-based milk like coconut milk or hemp milk or milkademia. I really like that one. Vanilla, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and the turmeric in there. And mix that all together and boil that and make a little latte out of it. So I think there's different ways that we can add these things in and we can support ourselves in a good way. And then I also want to talk about calcium at some point, and we could talk about that now or when we talk about bone health. But there's such a misconception that we have to drink milk and eat dairy to get our calcium. I still hear that every single day. I hear that as much as, where do you get your protein if you're a vegetarian? Well, the people say, well, and it's funny when people come to me and they don't know I'm plant-based, they'll say, well, I really don't like milk. So I know you're probably going to tell me I have to drink milk. And I'm like, oh, no, that's fantastic if you don't like, because you can get your calcium from plant-based sources. And I'm going to give you a long list of those too.
Yes, please talk about calcium because the other thing that I was thinking of, I was reminded a while back, right? A registered dietitian friend of ours who told us a long time ago, she said, now remember when you're talking about spinach, you need to tell people that spinach can actually prevent the absorption of calcium. So then we've been doing a lot of salads lately, my husband and I, and then I started to find, and help me with this, please, because I started to think, oh no, maybe I should not have spinach with my salad because any vitamin C or any calcium that I could be possibly consuming at the time will not be well absorbed if I have spinach in my food. So I don't know. I wonder if anybody else is confused about that. But please talk more about it because now in my mind, when I think of calcium, I think of green foods. But please tell us more about that.
Yeah, so there's lots of, first of all, if you're plant-based and you're really truly living a plant-based lifestyle, you're getting lots of calcium all day long. So if you're, I wouldn't be concerned about that because you're getting it in your breakfast, lunch, and dinner probably, and wait until I run through these foods. And I'm going to go kind of fast. The list is long, but these will be in the show notes for you. Oats, poppy seeds, chia seeds, sesame seeds, white beans, chickpeas, navy beans, grapes, peaches, blackberries, plums, avocado, grapefruit, figs, apricots, papaya, oranges, hazelnut, Brazil nuts, almond butter, almonds, broccoli, tahini, celery, mushrooms, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, green beans, soybeans, kale, tempeh, cabbage, soy yogurt, rice milk if fortified, soy milk if fortified, calcium fortified, orange juice, tofu, spinach, beet greens, Swiss chard, turnip greens, mustard greens, bok choy, okra, collard greens, and blackstrap molasses. That's a lot of places to get your calcium.
Wow, I had no idea.
And I've never read that list ever, so.
You did a great job.
But
Okay.
I think that's so important for people to know, just like, and I have had the same thing happen when people come in, and we're not really going to talk too much about iron today. I didn't pull up the food list for that, but people say, I have physicians who tell my patients, well, your iron is low, go eat meat. And I'm like, oh, no. don't. I'm like, I have a plant-based food list for iron. I have a plant-based food list for everything that I can find. We can't really do that with vitamin D and B12, right? So we supplement those. But everything else, I'm like, oh, here's zinc-rich foods, here's calcium-rich foods. And, so I think that it's important to realize that we can eat to help us, and I did a whole podcast on mindful eating that is so important. Why do you eat? You don't just eat for, because it tastes good. I mean, we want it to taste good, but we eat for a reason. And it's to nourish ourselves. And around this time in our lives, we have to be maybe a little more strategic about how we're eating and with the foods that we're putting in.
Now, what about soy at this stage in our lives? I've heard that when you consume soy products early in your stages, early in your life as a woman, that could help to contribute to maybe a better experience in menopause. But what about now? If I start eating a lot more soybeans, will the edamame, will that help me as well?
Yeah, it definitely can help you because it is the soy rich foods they found actually to be beneficial for you. Women's Health Across the Lifespan. And it's such a fantastic book because it is all designed about lifestyle medicine for women across the lifespan. So it takes and looks at all the different periods of a woman's life. So I would love for everybody to have that, and every woman to have that in their home, to be able to really learn to care for themselves with those lifestyle tools and understand about their body. But right from that book, it was talking about synthetic and bioidentical hormone therapies are associated with an increased risk of breast cancer. Phytoestrogens like soy are often utilized to reduce vasomotor menopausal symptoms. It is incorrect to associate that same risk with the use of soy. Whole soy food interacts with estrogen receptors uniquely, which decouples breast cancer risk from soy consumption and offers patients relief from menopausal symptoms without the fear of increasing breast cancer risk. And so there were two meta-analyses they did. They actually looked at legume-based phytochemical was associated with a 34% reduction in hot flashes, and a consumption of at least 15 milligrams of genistein was equivalent to about 3 ounces of tofu or a cup of soy milk a day, reduced hot flashes by 50%. That's pretty huge, really. And so that total reduction in was better than placebo, And so you can really, again, food as medicine.
Yes. Well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to probably even document this for myself to see if I incorporate more. And it doesn't have to be necessarily tofu, right? I can eat the soybean
No,
or
I love
edamame.
edamame. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. So for me too, I want to just say I'm a like the least processed is better, right? So edamame is to me the source that I go for. I do eat tofu, I do eat tempeh, I do eat seitan. I mean I do eat those things, but they're more limited for me, and also the plant-based milks are more limited for me because it's still processed. I really try to live more of a real food in its most real form. That's really what I'm going for with my own body. But again, your body, your choice. What works for me doesn't work for you. And I also want to throw this out there because every time I speak, I want people to think about this. We should not be food judging. We should not be food shaming. We should not be looking at another person and telling them what they should be eating, because it's really a very personal thing. And I think the minute we start shaming and judging others about their food choices is the minute that we create problems for that person. And
Yes, as a matter of fact, I tend to talk when appropriate, when we can, about food disorders and dieting and things
yeah.
like that. And part of it is feeling like you're being judged, that people are having an opinion about what you're eating. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's important for people to understand, is that we're not here to judge. We're just simply here to talk about the science behind what is more optimal for our health.
And we're here to educate, right? And to give awareness. And what you choose to do with the knowledge is up to you. But knowledge is power. And I can tell you, Maya, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for this because I changed my diet in 1992. And this was back way before it was fashionable to be a vegetarian. It was very hard. And people picked on me and judged me and shamed me. And, so it's been, my son is 30. I've been 30. I changed my diet when he was, 1. But that's a long time. And it bothered me a lot that people would say, what's wrong with you? Why won't you just eat a little bit of this, a little bit of that? Like, you don't go to somebody and say, hey, why don't you have a cigarette? Or you don't go to an alcoholic and say, come on, just have a drink. I don't know what's wrong with you. Just have a drink. If a person chooses to not have alcohol in their body, we don't do that to them. We don't, So I think we really need to think about how we use our words and really use them in the direction of truth and love, the 4 agreements, right? If it doesn't serve a purpose, don't say it.
So phytoestrogen, so you spoke about that. So tofu is okay. What other things can we do to alleviate the symptoms of menopause?
So let's recap just for a quick second. So we talked about sleep, right? So making sure that we sleep well. We talked about exercise, how the more we exercise, and what should you get for exercise? You should get, 150 minutes a week of exercise. And that exercise can be in the form of yoga. It can be in the form of, weight training, balance. I'm actually sitting right now on my core stability ball because I think that that's really actually very important. And I also have a treadmill desk. I'll actually just pick the thing up and show you, but I have a treadmill desk. So I actually will walk and work while I'm doing charts because I may have 2 hours of charts to do in a day. So I will walk and work. Or put ankle weights on as you walk around the house or go to the grocery store. You can throw them on. Put wrist weights on. You can go do things, put the dishes away and you're raising above your hand. It doesn't have to be weights. You could take bags of flour, almond flour, and do bicep curls with it. But there's exercises that you could do at home for strength, for balance. So exercise is important. Sleep is important. Food, we just talked about how it was so important. Stress management is where I want to go next. So, and I can tell you that was my biggest struggle in the past 2 years, being frontline in a pandemic. It was a huge, and I have so many tools. I feel like, if I had a hard time, then the whole world has had a hard time, right? Because I'm well trained in this stuff. I mean, I pull it out I could just say, oh, I have my essential oils right here. I have my sound. I have my Apollo Neuro. I did my yoga today. I have tools everywhere all around me. I use my breath work. But we have to really focus on that and knowing that saying no is a complete sentence. No is okay. And I love Aviva Romm. She's also a woman who I respect and admire so much that I met through the Center for Mind Body Medicine. And she says, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And so I think about that. When you say, actually, do you want to be on the podcast? I say, oh, hell yes. It's a hell yes for me. Because all the information that we spend talking about in 1 hour can really affect and change people all over the world, thousands and thousands of people's lives. So my 1 hour is a hell yes. And also boundary setting, right? So we don't have to do all of these things, and I can share with you, there's a book that I read during this, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. We really have to learn to protect ourselves. There's nobody out there going, Maya, I'm going to protect you. I mean, your husband, right? Like he does. My husband, my son, those are my protectors. But we have to do that for ourselves because at the end of every day, we're the ones. And remember, I shared that right in the very beginning. We have to have those 4 things that we talked about. So stress, that's really important. And then connection with others, I'll tell you, is the other piece, Maya, that I think I struggled with throughout the pandemic because I'm a yoga girl at heart, and my studio and belonging to the yoga community and going. I just this past weekend did the first yoga retreat that I've done in 2 years. And I was tearful because it felt so good for me to be not just with Jonah Kest, who is an amazing yogi, but also people who were like-minded, that cared about themselves, that cared about kindness, that cared about the planet, that cared about, all the things that yogis care about. So I think, honoring that, and then also physician isolation has been huge for me, because we used to gather and have meetings, even if we would see our colleagues. All of our meetings are on Teams. I was I'm vice chief of staff for 3 hospitals here at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And during one of the meetings, I said, it was actually a medical executive team meeting. I said, I would like to invite everybody to turn their cameras on so we can connect in this moment and look around the room, because everybody's going about their day and they're just, showing up and they're listening and they're not connecting. And we had a new chief nursing supervisor who was joining us, and he had his camera on. I wanted him to feel welcomed. Like, he's not just a bunch of, little bubbles on the Teams that's, MT, for Michelle Thompson. Like, I wanted us to all be human beings together and connect. So connection, with whoever that could be. And maybe, just talking to a girlfriend about what you're experiencing and going through with your symptoms, or going out for a walk to exercise together. That's the thing. When I was just with my girlfriends over this past weekend, they're active girls. So, and I say girls, they're in their 50s. I'm in my 40s.
We're still girls.
I'm always a girl. I'm always going to be a girl. But having active time with one another, and then really meaningful conversations, I think, is the other thing, and honoring where everybody is. I don't want to forget to say that, we are all in trauma in this pandemic. It's been a very difficult time for us as human beings to move through this and to try to maintain our lifestyle pillars as we are in a global pandemic and trauma. And so, moving out of this, Maya, I will be focusing on trauma-informed healthcare and really making sure that I'm putting that in the center of my work and recognizing the traumas that people have underwent.
It was something that you kind of touched on, but I'll kind of emphasize again, is that I noticed that when I have certain emotions, for example, anger, that's followed by a hot flash. I feel
Yeah.
hot. Like, I literally feel like that cartoon when, or the emoji that's, mad and the face is all red. I kind of feel the heat rising up. And so I remember asking someone else, is there an association between emotions and hot flashes? But I think, Dr. Thompson, you were just talking about that. Is that we trigger hot flashes even through with emotion. And so it's not like I'm trying to deny my anger. What I'm learning to do is be okay with the anger, recognizing I'm feeling angry right now. I'm angry. And then, like, I feel the heat in my head and in my back.
I just was looking down to look for something in my phone to share with you. This is on my phone. This is an emotion wheel.
Oh, wow.
And so I will have moments that come up that and I think I shared this the last time I was on. For periods of my time, I would have an alarm set on my phone every hour on the hour to check in with myself and say, how am I doing in this moment? How's Michelle? Like, not how's Maya, how's this patient, how's my son, how's my husband, how's Michelle doing? And in some of those moments, I may look at the emotion wheel and say, oh, I feel in this moment, because I always want to come back to in this moment, I actually feel happy, proud, and confident in this moment. And so this helps, because once you recognize and name those emotions, they can be really helpful. And I recently had a situation with a family member, and I was really shaken. And my husband said, pull out your wheel. How are you feeling? And once I named it, I felt so much better, because then I understood it. Because otherwise, what are you feeling? You're like, it's all that tension, right? And what does breath work do? Breath work helps to soothe that. And so those soft belly breathing that we did in the beginning are powerful for sleep. They're powerful for stress. They're powerful for mindful eating. Think about that. If you just take what we do, and I think I shared this with you before, we take deep breaths before we start eating. So we actually have a chime on our dinner table. So it's for gratitude. When I ring the chime, then we will say what we're grateful for. And we will hold hands and we will take some deep breaths together. And that moves us from sympathetic fight or flight, go, 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 into parasympathetic, let us rest and digest. And, and so I think we talked about that before, the 6-second kiss and the 20-second hug, those also move us from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. And so that's what could trigger a hot flash is just that intensity of maybe an unknown emotion or a stressful state inside of our body that you could use your breath work for. I wonder if there's been any studies actually on soft belly breathing with hot flashes. Let's do it.
Right?
My current physician assistant, who is amazing actually, her name is Leanna. She is doing a research project for part of her career ladder. She's doing soft belly breathing at the beginning of every patient encounter and checking their stress levels pre and post their soft belly breathing, which is wonderful. Because at one point I was definitely doing soft belly breathing with all of my patients too, because every space I went into, virtual space, I'm virtual a lot, everybody was stressed. And so I said, well, I'm just going to breathe with everybody.
So who would have ever thought? I mean, I say myself because I'm not in the medical world, but who would have ever thought that these practices, like the breathing practices and the yoga poses, could be really truly beneficial for all kind of diseases and conditions that we experience? Like there's so much science now behind it. It's probably always been there, and and I just didn't know about it. But I'm really I've heard also yoga in itself can be very good for women in menopause. And could it
Yes.
be also just kind of reducing the stress? Is that what it's
Yes.
about?
And yes. And so during the pandemic, interestingly, actually, when I had COVID, I took yoga as medicine for women's health from Tiffany Cruikshank, who is an amazing yoga teacher. She's also a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. And a lot of the poses that she was teaching were just supportive for relaxation. Because what do women do too much? Push, 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 push. And they don't slow down. So they're running around in sympathetic overdrive and never activating their parasympathetic nervous system. So when we look at yoga, the pillars of yoga, like I teach, yoga as a form of medicine. If patients want to talk to me about how they could utilize yoga, their yoga practice as their core of their medical care, we can definitely do that because the breath work is important, the movement is important, the balance is important, the care about the planet and all beings is important, and also slowing down and listening to your body, right? We need to listen to ourselves. That's so important to listen. We are our own best healer, our intuition, our inner guide. And so when we don't listen to that when we're running around like crazy and doing all these things and not slowing down. So just simply that slowing down can be so powerful.
Mm. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking that that's kind of maybe what menopause is in a way. It's that it's life telling us, okay, you've done so much. It's time to slow
Right?
down and take care of yourself. You've raised the children, you taking care of your household and relationships, and it's that time for us to kind of finally take care of ourselves.
Yeah, and it's just like we need to do it before it's too late. Really, we should be doing these, and I hate to should on people. I always think about that. You should do this, and you should do this, and you should do this. But really, I mean, we should be doing these at the very beginning, right? So I tried so hard to raise my son, teaching him all of these things, and he has them in his core. I know because he will say to me, "Mom, let's breathe together," and I'm like, oh, or Mom, did you exercise? Like if I was stressed recently about something and he was like, well, did you exercise? Or, did you get your yoga in today? Or did you lift weights or whatever? I really do, like when I look at exercise, I look at strategy of exercise, just like I do strategy of food. I do a balance, I do weights, I do cardio. Heart rate variability is really important. Heart disease in women is a big problem, right? So keeping our heart is a muscle, keeping our heart rate variability good. So what is heart rate variability? It's the ability for your heart to go into a fast state and also to slow down, right? So if we talk about we just say, women push, 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 go, 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 they're not going into that slow down response, right? And getting that high heart rate and the low heart. They're living in that rapid heart rate all the time, which is dangerous for us. And so when we are caring for ourselves, we are caring for others, right? And we are that example and that ripple that's going to change the world.
Absolutely. This has been wonderful. I always enjoy chatting with you. I feel like you bring such wonderful energy to the podcast that I just feel so much lighter and happier after I speak with you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners? And also, what's the best way that they can contact you?
Okay, so a couple of other things. I want to just share this because this is something that came to me actually when I was at Food as Medicine for Women's Health in Esalen. They had out on the table lots of the things that we've talked about for food choices and how you would grab like shakers of turmeric and cinnamon and ginger and things like that. So when I came home, I really wanted to use food strategy and I wanted to make sure that I was, had access to things to grab and go. And so one thing I did was I got a masala daba tray. So I got this masala daba tray, and mine is currently empty because I'm cleaning it, but it holds 7 things in here. So I will list for you the contents of my masala daba tray. I have 2 of these and I leave them in the refrigerator. But the reason I love it is because I can increase my nutritional profile so fast. So I could put coconut, maca, I could put cinnamon, turmeric, I could put Brazil nuts, I could put hemp hearts, any of those different little things in there. So that's fantastic. So I just want to always share that with people because we don't have time to go to the cupboard and pick up 14 things and increase our, smoothie profile, right? But if we have something like this that's off of Amazon, you can put whatever you want in it. So I'll share that contents of the masala daba tray with you. And then, I also just want to, this is my chime. So when I ring this, we say what we're grateful for in my house. And I want to just share my gratitude for you, Maya, and for you opening this space and for having, for giving women a place of awareness and for them to feel normalized, like that this is the process and it's okay to not be okay. And you are seen, you are heard, and this is normal what you're going through, but we can help and we can support things with lifestyle medicine. And so making sure that, you honor yourself, Maya, because what you're doing is absolutely amazing. And I know it's a lot of hard work. So
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. And if you would like to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram, mtyogi, YOGI doc, DOC on Instagram. I am on Clubhouse. I'm not really that active on Clubhouse. I have a website, which is www.wholeheartedmedicine.org, WHOLEHEARTED medicine, MEDICINE.org, and then BeWellTherapies.org. That's my collaborative website with my integrative physical therapist, my dietitian, my sound therapy team that I travel with, and I did travel with pre-COVID. We haven't gone back to that yet. But yeah, so Be Well Therapies, THERAPIES.org. And I'm just really grateful to be able to have this space. And, please know that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine has this subcommittee for menopause, and we're doing incredible work in trying to really, get women's health and awareness out there. So, the book is out for, women's health across the lifespan. And we have patient handouts that we're making and trying to improve all these pillars in women's lives and men's lives, really. I mean, sorry, we didn't talk about men today, but all of those men that are out there that support all of us women, we love you and we appreciate you as well, because it's all of us that make the world go round. And lastly, I think we're all here on this earth just trying to have a beautiful human experience. And I really do appreciate each and everybody that I get to come into contact with and I connect with. So thank you so much.
And I want to say thank you to you, first of all, for just coming on. Every time you come on, you bring such beautiful light and energy. And then everything else that you're doing to really reach out to everyone, and the way that you continue to educate yourself so that you can provide even what I consider kind of more holistic alternative remedies, so that people can be in a better place spiritually, physically, emotionally. And then now you're talking about becoming trauma informed. So I thank you so much for all this dedication that you have in terms of helping people to be a better version of themselves and to have optimal health.
Yeah, and I want to share too that alternative medicine means different and other than medicine, but integrative means integrating all these different modalities in. So to me, I'm really passionate about integrative, and knowing that that is all encompassing all the different modalities that we can use. And lastly, I am so excited that I am, able to take our healthcare system of University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and drive it forward, really putting self-care at the center of primary care and how we deliver care. So a lot of the work that I'm doing now is in group visits and, really helping to bring people together to learn all these pillars of how they can best care for themselves. And on my website, there is a shop with a doc that you can go grocery shopping with me at Aldi, and I show you things to buy and how to read a food label with my dietitian and I, and tons of resources on trauma and mind-body medicine. Some is done geared towards physicians, but it really is for everyone, because we've all been through this together. These past years of, COVID and the pandemic are life-changing for each and every one of us, and I think we have to honor that.
Yes, yes, we do. Thank you as always for your time.
Yes, thanks, Maya.
You've been listening to the Healthy Lifestyle Solutions podcast with your host, Maya Acosta. If you've enjoyed this podcast, do us a favor and share with one friend who can benefit from this episode. Feel free to leave us an honest review on Apple Podcasts. That helps us to spread our message. You can also head on over to podinbox.com/HLS to leave me a voicemail. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, thank you for listening.